Salve citizen. Now seriously, this is a little project I've been working on for some time, trying to come up with a authentic first century Roman legionary / auxilia kit that would have been used around the time of the crucifixion. So big surprise, yes, I am missing one piece of the outfit here. I am missing the cingulum that would be kind of like a belt that would keep everything on. Sword sheath, I'm actually in the I gotta redo the way I mounted this because I want to wear it probably as an auxilia, which means it would be on the left side. So legionaries would wear it on the right side, officers would wear it on the left side if they were part of the legion, but auxiliary troops wore it on the left because they would have typically a smaller shield. I've got to figure out which kind of shield I'm going to get. I do a lot of this stuff for my school kids and historical stuff, so I'm kind of debating on, do I want the traditional Hollywood famous imperial scutum, or do I want more of an oval auxilia shield? We'll see. What is interesting though is the Hollywood famous plate armor that you see would have been very rare at the time of the crucifixion. This helmet would have been a very new addition to the Roman kit, and it's very likely they would have actually had an older style helmet called the Montefortino, or possibly, most likely, the Culus is what they would have used in Judea, but we don't really know. We do know that it would have been very rare indeed for an auxiliary troop in Roman Judea at the time of Christ's crucifixion to be wearing plate armor. And that is called a lorica segmentata, or a segmented armor. This is the lorica hamata, or basically just chainmail. And you can see it does set very kind of low on you, which is nice. There would have been Roman legionnaires and auxiliary troops who wore the traditional woolen tunic. They were not always red. That's a huge Hollywood thing, is everyone's wearing red. They would have had some kind of scarf, usually around the neck, and all that's really doing is preventing me from chafing from the armor or from the helmet. The helmet here is called the Imperial Galea. It's the most comfortable and probably the most effective of all the Roman helmets, but it has excellent face and cheek protection, yet perfect ear opening. It has an amazing guard on the back, so that even in a sword strike, if I were to flinch away, my exposed neck and shoulder area would be covered. And then of course, I will have a pilum, or a spear. Eventually I'm going to get one of those. I'm either going to make one or I'm going to order one, depending on how much time I have during when the school year starts back. I'm on my break right now, so I'm kind of bored. That's why you see me doing this probably. I do actually have a Roman ring on, which is kind of cool. Got that for my birthday a year or two ago from my brother. Shout out to, I can't even remember the company. I think it's SPQR Ring Company or whatever it's called. It's all over Facebook and TikTok. You can just type it in, SPQR Ring, and it's the first thing you're going to see. This little thing here, I may have to adjust. I literally just put this armor on, and it is soaked in oil, and that is kind of cool. This particular armor is... I ordered one from Armory Replica, is the company. It's a little small. I mean, I'm not a small guy, but it was a little snug. I couldn't hardly get it off. So it got two sizes bigger, perfect fit, absolutely comfortable, astonishingly comfortable. It is heavy. This one is about 24, maybe 22 to 24 pounds. Interestingly, the first one I got seems like it was heavier. I don't know how that works, but roughly they say about 22 to 24 pounds, and that would be normal. I believe this is made of aluminum, but it feels awfully heavy to be aluminum, but I guess it's totally possible that it is. It looks like steel. It looks like stainless steel to me, and because it has such a heavy coating of oil and the other one had none on it, I'm gonna bet that somehow this is a steel one and this is actually real steel. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it has the shoulder piece here. This is removable. You could remove this and use this as a regular medieval chainmail or barbarian chainmail. The main difference here is this gives you extra protection on your shoulders where most people are going to be cutting. This would stop sword pokes, this would stop sword slashes. Sometimes it would stop arrows, sometimes it would stop spear throws, but it kind of depends on the angle. It's not foolproof, but it does give the wearer great protection, and it actually was the most popular form of Roman armor in the Roman legions. Unless, of course, you're cavalry, they would have a kind of a fish scale, dragon scale version called the Lorica Squamata. The only downside to that is it's very easy to break the scales off. It is high maintenance, and if you're riding a horse and someone stabs up at you, it very easily goes in between the scales and you could get hit that way. But for being on horseback and for being lightweight, it is the lightweight armor of the day. This is noticeably heavy. If you've ever worn a Lorica Segmentata, it's very light. However, it feels very rigid on your body and it feels very mechanical, and so there is some of that. This feels incredibly form-fitted and comfortable. It is a little heavy, but it's not really any worse than my actual modern-day body armor that I actually work out in or would wear if I was doing something with that. So weight-wise, there doesn't feel horribly worse. It is noticeably heavier though than my armored plates. So for AR 500 armor plates. So just for you guys that know, that's a bit of a thing. Now, obviously, the sword, this is an actual full-tang gladius sword. It came unsharpened, which for me, I don't care. I'm not planning on chopping stuff with it. There may come a time when I change my mind and I will sharpen it and do some of that for you. But this sword is 90% designed for poking. Okay, you're using it in conjunction with a massive square shield, and this is all you're doing. Now, that's not to say that you can't slash with it, and they certainly did sharpen your swords, and they certainly did slash with them. But if you're in individual one-on-one combat as a Roman legionary, this thing's gonna have to be fixed too a little bit. It's a little loose. If you're slashing in one-to-one combat as a Roman soldier, you're really not using the formation properly, because you should be just essentially poking and doing very minimal slashing. So this sword could be used on horseback. Typically they would choose a longer one for that, and usually more ornate. This is a more plain sword. This is just a regular gladius. This is not the Pompey. This is not the this is the Gladius Hispanola. So this is just your standard gladius. There are several different forms of gladii, but this is the one that would have fit that time period, and the one that I wanted just because it will work for more things. Now, typically, they would use one hand. A normal Roman legionary would have this on his right side, and he would be able to grab it with one hand and unsheath it like this, so he never had to take his hand off his shield. Now, auxiliary troops, for some reason, I'm not sure yet if it was just more of a desiring to have it on the left side to be somehow distinguished apart from the legionaries, or more of the oval shield is easier. Once I have one in my hand, I will be able to kind of figure out for myself in using it why that was. But and typically on the cingulum belt, I think I called it a cingulum earlier, it's a clingulum. It goes around and it has those leather bands that hang down, and there should be brass, round brass studs all down the leather. That's three reasons for this, okay? One, it looks super cool. It was a distinguishing mark of the Roman soldier. It is even in the old Republic, it was a symbol of Roman military status. Secondly, it does hold your equipment on. It will hold your belt. It'll hold your sword in place. If you have a dagger, a pugio, which is basically a short, fat, miniature gladius, you could have one of those. Those were private purchases normally. You wouldn't be issued one normally. you could buy one, and it would be great in a fix if you're in hand-to-hand combat and your sword breaks or you lose that or something as a last-ditch effort. Great for having around, just personal protection at camp, kind of thing like that, whatever. The third thing it does is it does give you some protection in the groin area. It will help against slashes. It may even stop a thrust if it hits just right. And of course it holds your garment down. Now obviously I don't have much trouble with my garments wanting to flap in the wind with this on. I am wearing breeches. These are like basically what these are on Amazon. They're men's beach pants, but this is very similar and almost identical to what many legionaries would wear. And then of course in the winter months they would wear even maybe longer ones, and they would have woolen socks on, and they would then take wool wrappings and wrap their feet in that inside the sandals or outside the sandals or both. And even if you get wet, you have very warm feet. Now I am wearing actual Roman reproduction caligae, which are Roman sandals, and I don't know if you can see this in the video, but on the bottom you'll notice there are nails, there are hobnails. This has really three purposes. One, durability. It's going to make the soles last a lot longer than they would otherwise. Second of all, it's basically the world's first formal introduction of cleats to a military. You have traction, not on tile, by the way, but out here in the ground and in the mud or in the grass, you have a lot of traction there that you wouldn't have normally. And then third, it makes an incredibly impressive sound when you have thousands of guys marching with these studded shoes clacking on the hard ground or gravel or pavement. It just sounds really intimidating, and that was all by design. All right, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I've missed in this outfit. I don't think there is. I will say also that the sandals, if you can see them, maybe I'll do a close-up picture later, but they are very open. They're very comfortable. I'm surprised at how comfortable they are. I actually expected it to be horrible. I can see why the Roman army used these. They knew what they were doing. It eliminates the possibility of trench foot. I wouldn't want to fight in a fire ant mound, obviously, but they're very open. If something does get in there, you can just take your foot and tap it on the ground and it will come out. You can get in mud with this without having to worry about getting trench foot. It's great. I'm surprised. Now, one thing I don't have in this kit, which I may or may not get, Romans did not wear greaves on both legs typically, and most of their guys didn't have them at all. Some of the guys though would, and they would place it on their shield leg, because this is the leg where they're going to be planting towards the enemy. Their right leg will be back, and so in theory they're going to block that with their sword, and they're not going to need any on that leg. So if you did see Roman soldiers, now officers, totally different story. Officers would wear whatever they wanted. They could be as ornate as they wanted, and sometimes that's what they would do. The soldiers though typically would just armor one leg. And then if you've watched any Roman movie ever, you know what's missing on my arms. And that is something that we don't know actually even happened. We don't know that guys wore leather bracings on their arms. It would make sense that they did, and so I would argue that there were probably a lot of guys who did. We just don't have a lot of documented evidence for that. And so when you see that in any kind of Romanesque movie, you always see guys wearing leather bracers on their arms. Obviously, it's not a bad idea, but it's one we just don't have a lot of historical backing for. So there you go. I hope this has been informative and interesting. When I get my cingulum and scutum and pilum, I'll probably remake this or do a different one. Plus, I'll be making them for my classes. So hopefully, I want to do an Easter presentation at some point too this year on what it was like to be one of the soldiers at the crucifixion, and then of course guarding the tomb. And these would have been probably auxiliary troops, probably not Roman legionaries. Could have been cavalry. It could have been Syrian recruits in the auxilia infantry. So it's kind of not maybe what you're thinking there when you watch Hollywood films. So if you've seen The Chosen, and I'm not commenting on whether I agree, Some of the show's okay, some of it's not so good. Anything to do with the Roman gear you see in that show is pretty much awful. Not trying to hate on it, but it's just pretty much, I don't know who did they didn't do research at all. So, oh well, you know. But if you want to see a really good portrayal of Roman equipment and armor, not endorsing the show, but HBO's Rome has a series, not endorsing the show at all, okay? But it has very accurate portrayal of the armor and the fighting techniques. So, and until then, I will see you next time.